The concept of a 3D printer is very simple. There is filament, which is plastic, that goes through a hot area in the extruder module. Then this filament is extruded out onto a heated platform, which we call a bed. Different axes are usually used to guide where this extruder module would go. In our case, which is a Cartesian 3D printer, meaning it has an X, Y, and Z axis, the Z axis moves up as each layer is finished. The filament is usually also inserted by a motor on the side that slowly inches the filament into the extruder module. Let's take a look at what's inside the extruder module. So here I have the hot end assembly, and this is usually inside the extruder module. So over here we have it taken apart. We have the nozzle, we have the heat block, the heat break, and the heat sink. So the heat sink dissipates heat, and it has these little slits in between to help the heat get away. Then I have the heat break, which separates the heat from the heat block and with the heat sink. So it helps keep one end cool and one end hot. And that's why there's like a neck in between the two threads. Now I have the nozzle, and this controls how tiny every strand of filament that is extruded. And it usually goes at the very end of the heat block. So now with me, I have a different printer, but I have the hot end module that's fully assembled, and I've taken it out on the side so I can heat it up and demonstrate what actually happens. So I also have filament with me. This is PLA. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it through this whole hot end assembly, and you can take a look at what happens. So there are two wires that enter the heat block. One is the thermistor and one's the heating element. The thermistor measures and reads the temperature of the whole block, and the other wire is the heating element, which heats the whole block up. So when I push the filament through the really hot end, the plastic is coming out on the other end and it's molten. And as it comes out, it's also solidifying because the temperature outside is a lot lower than the temperature in the heat block. But as you can see, it's still not really solidifying, and that's why some printers have another fan in the front that blows the extruder nozzle area simultaneously to make sure that the filament cools down instantaneously. There is usually another fan that cools the heatsink even more on the other end. So that's everything that there is in the extruder, oversimplified. I hope you're able to understand the basic concept of how a 3D printer works. Moving on, we'll be talking about different filaments that you can use.